Most people scroll past headlines every day without feeling anything. But sometimes a name alone stops the scroll. Sometimes just one sentence makes your heart lean forward slightly, as if something unseen just called you by name. And right now, whether you realize it or not, that moment is happening to you. Not because of Elon Musk himself, but because of the woman who shaped him long before the world knew his name. His mother, May Musk. And strangely enough, she wants your attention right now. Not in the loud, obvious way people usually chase attention. Not with dramatic scandals or viral arguments. But with something quieter, deeper, and far more powerful. A message hidden in her journey. A signal hidden in her timing. And a reminder that seems to arrive exactly when certain people are ready to receive it. You might be wondering why her story suddenly feels everywhere. Why her words are being shared again. Why her presence feels different now. It's not just because she is the mother of one of the most powerful innovators alive. It's because her life is proof of something most people forget while chasing success, beauty, love, or validation. And the world is finally listening to it again. For decades, May Musk lived a life that would have broken most people quietly. She was a single mother. She struggled financially. She modeled into her 60s and 70s when society tells women they should disappear. She raised 3 children alone while working multiple jobs. And still, she never spoke from bitterness. Never from rage. Never from entitlement. Only from resilience. Only from belief. Only from a quiet confidence that said, "My story isn't late. It's just on time." And today, that message lands differently than it ever has before. Because we are living in a time where millions of people feel invisible. Delayed. Overlooked. Discarded. Too old. Too late. Too broken. Too behind. Too tired. And suddenly, here comes a woman in her 70s, walking runways, doing global campaigns, speaking with clarity and calm, reminding the world that timing is not something you beg for. It's something you align with. But why does this matter to you specifically? Because her story doesn't just mirror success. It mirrors waiting. It mirrors uncertainty. It mirrors being misunderstood. It mirrors being underestimated. It mirrors the season where you are doing everything right but nothing seems to be breaking open yet. It mirrors the phase where you know you carry more inside you than the world currently allows you to show. And when something mirrors your inner world, it feels like attention. It feels personal. It feels intentional. May Musk didn't become relevant because of algorithms. Algorithms follow energy. And right now, her energy is a message people need but don't know how to ask for. That message is this: your value is not attached to your timeline. Think about it. Elon Musk is often seen as the symbol of acceleration, rockets, electric cars, artificial intelligence, the future moving too fast for most minds to catch. But the woman who raised that mind represents the opposite energy: patience, endurance, survival, grace under pressure, and the kind of long vision that doesn't need applause to survive. And that contrast is exactly why you're feeling this pull. Because part of you is tired of rushing, tired of proving, tired of chasing validation that disappears as fast as it arrives. And suddenly, here is someone whose life says, you don't have to explode early to be powerful later. There is something deeply magnetic about a person who succeeds without bitterness. And that magnetism is what's moving toward you right now. May Musk spent years being told she was too old for fashion, too late for stardom, too quiet for influence, too broken for luxury. And somehow, the world had to apologize by listening later. That alone carries a hidden message for anyone who feels like they missed their moment. You didn't miss it. You're walking toward it. Slowly. Quietly. Unnoticed. Just like she did. People often think attraction is about glamour. About money. About spotlight. About noise. But real attraction is energy that doesn't beg to be seen. It simply is. And the world eventually turns its head because it feels something it can't name. That's what's happening here. Her presence is not loud. But it's undeniable. It's the same kind of attraction that happens when someone walks into a room without needing approval and yet somehow shifts the atmosphere. You don't know why you noticed. You just did. This is not about celebrity worship. This is about resonance. It's about timing. It's about alignment. And most importantly, it's about the reminder that the version of you that feels delayed might actually be protected. There's a strange truth most people won't admit: some dreams break if they arrive too early. Some power destroys if it's handed to unprepared hands. Some visibility crushes people who haven't built roots first. May Musk built roots for decades. And only after that did the spotlight arrive. Imagine the discipline that takes. To keep showing up without applause. To keep refining without rewards. To keep believing when the mirror and the world both whisper doubt. That kind of strength doesn't look dramatic. It looks ordinary. Until one day it looks extraordinary. And what makes this moment so personal for you is that you might be in that ordinary phase right now. Doing things no one claps for. Healing in silence. Building in secrecy. Trying again without telling anyone you almost quit last week. And suddenly you see her story. And something inside you exhales. Because it tells you that invisibility is not failure. It's incubation. There's another layer to why her attention feels directed at you. It's not just about age, struggle, or delayed success. It's about identity. She never reduced herself to only one role. Not just a model. Not just a mother. Not just a survivor. Not just a public figure. She allowed herself to evolve. And most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they lock themselves into an identity that no longer fits. They cling to who they were because they are terrified of who they could become. Watching someone rewrite themselves at every season gives permission to the rest of us to do the same. You don't have to stay the version of yourself that survived the worst chapter. You're allowed to become the version that thrives. And when that realization lands at the right moment in someone's life, it feels like attention. It feels like destiny tapping on the shoulder gently instead of shouting. That's the energy surrounding her presence right now. Quiet permission. And maybe the most powerful thing of all, she does not sell revenge. She does not sell victimhood. She does not sell resentment. She sells endurance without poison. Strength without rage. Confidence without entitlement. In a world addicted to outrage, that calm strength feels revolutionary. And people who are tired of emotional chaos feel drawn to it instinctively. Even if they don't know why. You might not even be able to explain why this topic caught your eye. But it did. Because something in you wants stability more than spectacle. Purpose more than performance. Depth more than dopamine. There is another subtle truth in this story that most people miss. While Elon Musk is known for building the future, his mother is a living symbol of something even rarer: sustainability of self. Not burning out. Not collapsing under timelines. Not losing identity under pressure. That is the real flex. And if you're honest with yourself, that's what you want too. Not just success. But success that doesn't destroy your nervous system. Not just money. But peace alongside it. Not just influence. But freedom inside it. That's the unspoken message moving toward you. Not be famous. Not be rich. Not be admired. But be unshakable. And unshakable people always rise later than expected. You are not behind. You are early for the version of yourself that can hold what's coming. That's why this story feels different. That's why her presence feels intentional. That's why this moment doesn't feel random. And that's why, strangely enough, it feels like she wants your attention right now. Because some messages only land when the soul is ready. There's a moment in every long journey where the mind quietly asks a dangerous question. What if this is all there is? Not out of weakness, but out of exhaustion. When effort stretches longer than reward. When hope keeps showing up but proof keeps being late. That is usually the moment when most people shrink their dreams to fit their pain. They aim lower. Expect less. Want smaller. Not because they lost belief, but because waiting exhausted their courage. And this is exactly where her story steps in again. Because Musk waited longer than almost anyone in her field. Not just for recognition. But for alignment. For dignity. For stability. For respect. For a moment that didn't demand she erase parts of herself to fit a mold. And for years, that moment didn't come. Yet she kept moving without knowing if it ever would. That kind of movement changes a person internally. It rearranges their relationship with hope, with fear, with comparison, with age, with identity. You stop asking, "Why not me?" and start whispering, "Even if it's never me, I will still become more." Most people don't reach that stage. They stop just before it arrives. And that's another reason her story feels like it's speaking to you. Because you might be standing right at that edge. That quiet edge where disappointment tries to disguise itself as realism. Where self-protection pretends to be maturity. Where shrinking feels like wisdom. But her life says something dangerous to that mindset. It says, growing slower doesn't mean growing smaller. It says, you can still become, even after the world decides you're done becoming. It says, your value does not decrease just because the timeline did not cooperate. There's a strange loneliness in being the one who doesn't quit loudly. The one who doesn't announce exhaustion. The one who doesn't make drama out of discouragement. The one who just keeps going quietly. The world doesn't clap for that kind of strength. It rarely even notices it. But that's the kind of strength that ages into power. That's the kind of strength that doesn't collapse when spotlight finally arrives. And when someone like that suddenly becomes visible to millions, it's not just luck. It's a signal. It tells the invisible warriors out there, you weren't wasting your time. You were being prepared. Preparation is rarely glamorous. It looks like delay. It looks like obscurity. It looks like rejection. It looks like repetition without applause. It looks like showing up with no audience. It looks like believing when believing feels irresponsible. And that's why you feel this unspoken pull toward this story. Because you recognize that landscape. You've walked it. You know what it's like to keep promises no one ever checks on. To stay disciplined when no one is watching. To hold on to vision with no witnesses. That kind of discipline changes the nervous system. It creates a stillness that doesn't flinch under chaos. It creates an identity that doesn't beg external permission to exist. It creates a confidence that doesn't argue. It just stands. And that confidence is contagious. Not dramatic. Not loud. Not desperate. Just solid. And solid energy always attracts people who are tired of emotional noise. Another truth hidden inside her presence is something few people talk about openly. She was not protected by comfort. She was shaped by responsibility. Single motherhood forces a level of emotional maturity most people delay for decades. It teaches decision-making under pressure. Endurance without applause. Strength without performative masculinity. Discipline without rigid ego. That environment didn't just raise confident children. It forged a woman whose identity didn't depend on anyone validating it. And people who don't need validation become mirrors. They don't chase you. They reflect you. They show you what self-trust looks like when it's fully grown. When it doesn't look aggressive. When it doesn't look defensive. When it doesn't look performative. Just grounded. And grounded energy pulls at the parts of you that are tired of performing for survival. You might not notice it consciously. But somewhere in you, there is a craving for permission to stop rushing. To stop proving. To stop auditioning for worthiness. To stop turning your life into a performance contract. Her energy says, you don't have to hurry to be chosen. You are allowed to arrive intact. That message hits differently when you've been in survival mode for a long time. When you've been the strong one while quietly needing someone to be strong for you for once. When you've been the responsible one while secretly wishing you could rest without everything collapsing. When you've been the hopeful one while privately fearing you're running out of time. This story doesn't shout at you. It sits next to you. It whispers. There's also something strangely comforting about seeing a woman in her 70s not clinging to youth but expanding into power. Not apologizing for age but wearing it like authority. Not hiding time but embodying what time can build when someone doesn't self-destruct along the way. It reframes aging itself. It turns growing older from a threat into an asset. And that reframe is deadly to fear-based living. Because fear depends on the illusion that time is your enemy. But her life reveals time as a refining force. Only the things that survive time are truly yours. Your character. Your discipline. Your values. Your identity when no one is praising it. Your ability to stand alone without feeling abandoned. Your capacity to love without needing to be rescued. Your strength without needing to dominate. These are not things you build in viral moments. These are forged in the long seasons where nothing seems to change externally but everything is shifting internally. And that's likely the season you're in right now. Not the ending. Not the explosion. Not the reveal. The becoming. Which is always quieter than people expect. And then there's the shadow side of fame that her presence indirectly exposes. Fame makes everything louder, including insecurity. It magnifies ego just as fast as it magnifies confidence. People who arrive in the spotlight without roots often shatter beneath it. People who are shaped slowly by obscurity stand unmoved when attention finally arrives. That contrast is one of the deepest hidden lessons in this entire narrative. You don't want a life that only looks powerful on camera. You want a life that feels powerful when no one is watching. And that's exactly what her energy represents. That's why it feels personal. That's why it feels like attention. That's why it doesn't feel accidental that you encountered this now. Because you are likely standing at a point in your life where your old methods of motivation no longer work. Fear used to push you. Pressure used to move you. Comparison used to fuel you. Proving people wrong used to energize you. But now those engines feel toxic. Now they feel heavy. Now they feel draining. And you're searching for a quieter drive. A truer one. A more sustainable one. Her presence embodies that shift. From force to alignment. From anxiety to endurance. From hurry to steadiness. From proving to becoming. And here's the part that really hits deep if you let it. She didn't just survive struggle. She outlived the labels placed on her. She outgrew every limitation that tried to define her. She wasn't rushed into destiny. She grew into it. Slowly. And when you see that, something inside you starts to relax. Because maybe you don't need to panic about being late anymore. Maybe your timeline wasn't sabotaged. Maybe it was customized. For your nervous system. For your trauma. For your emotional capacity. For your maturity. For your awareness. For your readiness. Some people arrive early and break. Some people arrive later and reign. And both timelines look the same at the beginning: empty stage, silent crowd, unknown performer. The difference is who stays. And you're still here. Still trying. Still searching. Still learning. Still breathing. That alone means your story isn't over. And that's why this one feels like it's speaking directly to you. There's one last layer beneath everything you've felt so far, and it's the quietest one of all. The layer most people never consciously notice, but their spirit responds to instantly. It's the realization that true power does not announce itself. It reveals itself only when the person carrying it no longer needs to convince anyone it exists. That's the space she stands in now. And that space is magnetic. Not because it demands your attention, but because it doesn't need it. That's what makes it feel like she wants your attention now, because for the first time, her life carries a message that doesn't require struggle to be heard. It doesn't ask for sympathy. It doesn't crave validation. It doesn't need explanation. It simply is. And when something simply is, it becomes a mirror for anyone who is tired of fighting to be seen. You might be realizing something important right now without even fully putting words to it. That the part of you that used to crave recognition is getting quieter. That the part of you that used to beg for proof is starting to rest. That the part of you that thought success would finally make you feel enough is slowly understanding that being enough is what survives even when success fluctuates. That's what maturity actually looks like. And strangely enough, that's the frequency surrounding this story. Not hype. Not chaos. Not obsession. But grounding. And grounded energy feels rare in a world addicted to stimulation. Which is why it cuts through the noise so cleanly. There is something deeply reassuring about watching someone arrive fully without collapsing under arrival. No desperate reinvention. No loud proving. No frantic attempt to stay relevant. Just steady presence. That kind of presence doesn't excite the ego. It calms the nervous system. And when your nervous system calms, truth becomes easier to hear. The truth that you don't need to rush your becoming. The truth that you don't need to match anyone else's timeline. The truth that you don't need to shrink your dreams just because your current reality hasn't caught up to them yet. The truth that what's growing inside you quietly might be stronger than what's exploding loudly around you. If you've been feeling out of place lately, this may be why. Not because you're lost, but because your frequency is changing. You no longer resonate with noise as easily as before. You no longer feel fed by chaos. You no longer feel inspired by shortcuts. You're drawn to depth now. Longevity. Stability. Truth. Sustainability of self. And that shift can feel lonely at first. Because the crowd gets thinner there. But the air gets cleaner. And that's where her story exists. In clean air. You may also be noticing that you're less impressed by appearances than you used to be. Less hypnotized by status. Less seduced by surface-level power. Because somewhere along the way, you learned what it costs to maintain a fake self. You learned how exhausting it is to pretend you're okay when you're not. You learned how heavy it feels to keep chasing versions of yourself that were built for survival, not fulfillment. And now you're quietly craving something truer. That craving is being answered through resonance, not instruction. Not through preaching. Not through commands, but through presence, through example, through quiet embodiment. And that's why this doesn't feel like just another celebrity story. It feels like a reminder, a recalibration, a silent confirmation that you're not wrong for wanting a life that doesn't tear you apart just to prove it mattered. There is also something deeply healing about witnessing a woman who didn't rot in resentment, who didn't weaponize her struggles, who didn't turn pain into performance, who didn't make suffering her brand. She transcended without hardening. That is rare. And rare things tend to reshape what we believe is possible. You don't have to become colder to become stronger. You don't have to become ruthless to become respected. You don't have to become loud to become powerful. You don't have to arrive angry to arrive victorious. That redefinition alone is enough to make a soul pause, to breathe, to rethink, and maybe even to hope differently. If you've been feeling emotionally heavier than usual lately, this could be why. Because you're shedding old motivators. Fear, scarcity, urgency, comparison, external validation. You're not losing drive. You're upgrading it. From pressure-based to purpose-based. That transition always feels strange. Because pressure is loud. And purpose is quiet. Pressure screams. Purpose whispers. Pressure burns fast. Purpose burns long. And her story burns long. That longevity is what you're being gently pulled toward. Not the quick win. Not the viral moment. Not the instant validation. But the life that still stands when trends dissolve. The identity that still holds when applause fades. The self that doesn't disappear when circumstances change. That's real wealth. And your soul knows it. Which is why you stayed with this message. Which is why this didn't feel boring. Which is why this didn't feel random. Which is why this didn't feel empty. Because you're not in a phase of being entertained anymore. You're in a phase of being recalibrated. And that phase always feels quieter. Slower. More reflective. But infinitely more powerful. If no one has told you this lately, let it land now. Your story is not behind. Your path is not broken. Your becoming is not late. You are not invisible. You are incubating. You are integrating. You are stabilizing. You are shedding what no longer fits. You are preparing for a version of yourself that will not collapse under what it once begged for. And when that version arrives, it will feel natural. Not chaotic. Not shocking. Not overwhelming. Just right. That's the kind of arrival that stays. And if this story reached you at a moment when you've been questioning your pace, your worth, your direction, your relevance, your timing, know this. Nothing powerful grows on borrowed timelines. Nothing rooted blooms on external schedules. And nothing aligned ever arrives too late. It arrives when the person is finally able to hold it without losing themselves. That's the deeper reason this energy feels like it's reaching for you now. Not to impress you. Not to hype you. Not to distract you. But to remind you that becoming takes time. That strength grows quietly. That identity solidifies slowly. That the life meant for you will not require you to destroy yourself to deserve it. And that the version of you still walking, still trying, still learning, still healing, still hoping, is not the weak version. It is the one that lasts. And lasting power is the only kind that actually matters.